Hi, my name is Katie J. Joe, and today we're going to be talking about spiritual sovereignty. This podcast is about asking spiritual questions and pondering them, wandering through them, and deciding for ourselves what is true and what is not for true. I'm not here to tell you what is or isn't true for you. I'm simply here to propose questions and to offer my own insights. Today, I want to talk to you a little bit about suicide. What a lot of people don't know is that I attempted suicide when I was in my teens and survived. And one of the ways that I say this is I did commit suicide. I was committed. I feel like when you do attempt suicide, you are committed. You know the risks of it and you know the intentions behind it. And at that time, I was 100% committed to being done with this physical realm. I didn't want to continue on here anymore. And it would be lying to you to say that I haven't ever felt that way again. I feel like people who can go all the way to the edge of that, all the way to the edge of surviving and decide that this isn't where I want to be, I don't know that that ever stops. Meaning, what I mean by that is, I don't know that you ever don't go to that edge again. But there's a few things that I want to talk about with suicide and where I was at that time and some concepts that I have now, a book that really changed my perspective. Um, and let's just dive into it. So at the time when I attempted suicide, I OD'd and I was hospitalized beyond the typical 3 days, because typically it's a 3 day thing. I was actually hospitalized for 10. And I was running through all of these tests and psychology and all of this stuff that was happening and assessments for me. And I remember being in the mental hospital with a wide variety of people for a lot of different reasons, all of them there who were suicidal. And one of the memories that I have from that time is this woman who was middle-aged woman, and she had 5 kids, and she was very LDS, very quote unquote righteous. And I remember that she had one of her kids was out on a mission. And I, like, based on conversations, she didn't work. She was a stay-at-home mom. They had a fairly affluent lifestyle. And I couldn't understand why she was there, because everything that I had been taught, everything that I had been told was success in life from growing up in a Christian Latter-day Saint culture, was this is actually what every woman wants. Lots of kids, your bills are paid, you're stay-at-home mom, you bake, you cook, you clean, you support your husband, he makes more than enough money for all of you, provides for you, and you spiritually raise your kids. And look, you're successful, your kids are out on missions spreading quote unquote the gospel. And so every single box was checked in her life, and I couldn't process why she was there, because it was so foreign to me. Like, wait a second, I'm being told that this is the answer to happiness, and this person that I see here is clearly not happy. And at the risk of saying this on the podcast, we were there, and we all had to stay in this big community room and sleep, and there was techs that would check on us. And then there was the unsafe people. They couldn't be in the community room, they couldn't sleep in the community room, they had to be locked away, and some people needed their individual rooms. It was really kind of strange. And I remember this one night, like code red, alarms going off, like I didn't know what was going on. But the next day, what we learned is that that woman had been able to find something sharp and had slit her wrists. And so she was no longer with us. She was no longer with the community. She had to get repaired, but then they took her to like a more extreme level of whatever was going on. So all of this stuff, there was multiple women in there that had that same story. And I was like, what is wrong? How could, you're supposed to be happy? I could tell why I wasn't happy, but I couldn't understand why they weren't. So at the time that I was there and leading up to that, I just felt like there was no hope. I felt like there was no future. I felt like I couldn't figure life out. I felt like I couldn't overcome some of the problems that I was having. One of them being, at the time, very bulimic and immersed in this eating disorder and addicted to different kinds of diet pills, because I was um, so obsessed with being thin. And I was taking anywhere from 50 to 120 pills a day to try to be thin. And so I had gotten deep into that. And so when I look at the suicide attempt and being hospitalized, I actually look at that as a breaking point because that was what broke me off of all those pills because I had to detox. And luckily, I never ended up going back after that. I still struggled with an eating disorder for many years, but I didn't go back to the pills. So I'm grateful for that. But I remember at the time leading up to that to just feel like not only did I not have the coping skills, not only did I not know how to get up the thing out of the things that I was involved in, but just this idea that I being alive, existing was disappointing everyone around me. I felt like my parents were disappointed with me. I felt like my friends were disappointed with me. I felt like I had sinned because I had had sex and you're supposed to be a virgin in this culture. There was so much in the culture that was taught about being a used Kleenex, being, flower by the side of the road, or being chewed up gum, like when talking about if you were not a virgin by the time you were married. And so I felt completely worthless that way. And then I remember part of the catalyst, and I wonder if the people would see this video, and I hope that they don't. But I had this really good friend that I just loved, and I had gotten really close to her, and I honestly just cherished her. And she pulled away from me energetically and was crying, and I didn't understand what had happened. And what had happened is just she had this high school crush that she had had a couple years. They'd grown up in the same neighborhood, and I knew she had this big crush. And this boy who was friends with her from childhood had asked her and had approached her and told her that he had a crush on me, and because he could see we were friends, could she connect him with me. And so I didn't know that that situation had happened. What had happened is I just felt my friend pulling back. And then when I learned what happened, I just thought this is just another story of how I am the problem. And I was like, I didn't know if I should go to college. I didn't want to go to college. I felt like I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was really, really aimless. And so I felt like at the time, the best solution would just to be removing me from the equation. And that was what I attempted to do. And ultimately, I survived it. And I suppose I could do another video on all of the things behind the scenes. I mentioned this in two books that I've written. One, I was an anthology. And then, of course, it's in my upcoming book, Sovereign Soul. So let's fast forward to what has helped me, because I am somebody who feels things like the pendulum swing all the way one way and all the way to the other. And I think a lot of people who are suicidal are that. And then when we get stuck on this side where we feel like there is no hope and there is no light at the end of the tunnel, and I'm just going to live on this repeated day like Groundhog Day, then I want to end it. And it will help everyone around me and it will help me. And it's this rejection of life in and of itself. So I have been trained in hypnotherapy, and I started to study hypnotherapy. And one of the books that really, really, really changed my life, because I've always had suicidal ideation. I've always come to the edge. I've always had to fight my way back from that moment of asking whether I should continue on or not. And this is forever. And even as a mother, and you get to this moment on your darkest days where you do think that everyone's better off without you. And like that even makes me emotional because it's true. But coming to this book called Journey of Souls by Michael Newton, Journey of Souls is this hypnotherapist through 17,000 different interviews. He simply asked under hypnosis the patient or the client, what happens after we die? And all people came in from all different religions, even atheists and agnostics, all people from all different backgrounds would come in with preconceived notions. But under hypnosis, when he asked that, what they said happens in the in between is very, very similar. And so, with that, there's something to, I feel like when all these people are saying there's something similar, feel like there's something valid there. There's something to look into, because hypnotherapy wasn't really around until the 60s or 70s. And now it's understood to be a viable therapy. But up until then, we really didn't have this information. This information is coming forward. So in this book, why it really affected my mentality around suicide is this guy under hypnosis shares that when we, for a soul that has committed suicide, when they move through the veil, what usually happens is they have this awareness that they didn't complete why they went down there. They wanted to set up challenges. They wanted to make it as hard as they could because they wanted to overcome them, and they wanted to excel at them and know the true strength and endurance of their soul. And so by opting out, they will often sign up again to come down into another lifetime because they want to do it again. They want to know that they can face those big challenges where everything seems lost and make it through. And so when I read that, I thought to myself, well, I don't want to prolong my suffering. And I don't mean to convey that my life is suffering. It's not really fair to say that. But when I'm in my hardest, darkest times, what happens is I think of that book and I go, I don't want to do this again. I want to figure it out. I want to find out why life is worth something. I want to know why life is worth living. I want to find that inner peace that's within me, that I can be in peace and find even joy in the midst of any struggles and traumas and all of these things. I want to be able to do that. And if that's what my soul wants to do and I end up opting out early, then it's very likely that I'll end up ricocheting right back because that's what my soul wants. And that has actually helped me to just stop the suffering. So if that's helpful in any way, and I hope that it is, there you go.